Welcome to Aldehydes and Ketones Part 1. We are going to start off by naming aldehydes and ketones. Notice that the aldehydes and ketones have a carbonyl group. Aldehydes have a hydrogen on the carbonyl, and ketones do not. They have carbon groups on either side. For the aldehydes and ketones, we follow the same kind of IUPAC nomenclature rules as we always have. So we start by numbering the longest chain, and then we add an ending, either AL ending for aldehydes or ONE endings for ketones, which makes sense. So we've got three propanal, because this is a propan 3-chain carbon group. Here we have the aldehyde is on the end because it has to be, and then we make that carbon number 1. So propanal is fine. You don't have to say 1-propanal because it's pretty obvious it has to be on the end. So let's go through each of these names. 3-methyl-butanal, because we're numbering 1, 2, 3-methyl, and butanal is fine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is a dialdehyde, and we've got a bromine in the 3rd position. And so again, you don't have to say 1,5-dial because it's obvious the aldehyde has to be on the end. So it's sort of a nice thing about aldehydes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Here we've got another functional group of alcohol. So that's, as a substituent, it's called a hydroxyl group. So I would say 6-hydroxy, 3,4-dimethyl, and then heptanal because it's a chain of 7. All right, with the ketones, this is a cyclic ketone here. So we think of this as a cyclohexanone, ONE for ketone. But then we've got this hydroxyl group. So it's a 2-hydroxy cyclohexanone. If you want, let's see, you can, with ketones, you can say where the carbonyl group is, because the carbonyl group can be anywhere. It can be on carbon 2 or carbon 3. In this case, we want to say it's on carbon 2, so pentan 2-one. Here, this is 3,3-dimethyl hexan 2-one. Okay, and there's a chain of 6 hexan. Now, these 3 here have common names. This 3-carbon ketone is called acetone. It's known as being a solvent, or fingernail polish removers commonly uses acetone. Acetaldehyde, because this is an acetyl group, is a CH3 carbonyl group. So acetaldehyde. Then 1 carbon group is called formaldehyde, which you've probably heard of before. So the suffix used for aldehydes is AL, and for ketones it's ONE. All right, oops, there we go, Al. Okay, now what would be the IUPAC names for these 3 compounds here? These are the common names which you should know, but how would we name them in the IUPAC system? So for acetone, we would call that a 3-chain ketone, so it would be 1, 2, 3. It would be propanone. You could say it's propan 2-one, but with ketones, it has to be in the middle. So propanone. Otherwise, it'd be an aldehyde, and you can't have that for a ketone. Acetaldehyde, what would this be called? This is a 2-carbon chain, so this would be ethan, because we have 2 carbons, and then the ending would be al. And we don't need to specify the number because aldehydes are always on the end. Formaldehyde, that's 1 carbon unit, so my prefix is meth, and then al, methanal. All right. The parent chain always needs to contain the carbonyl carbon, usually anyway, and the carbonyl carbon will get, it has the highest oxidation, so it's usually our priority group. So what that means is I want it to be my lowest possible number. Now, I threw in a little bit of a curveball here because, if this is your parent chain, then you have to name this as a substituent. However, at the end of last quarter, we learned about all these different benzene-containing compounds, and we learned about phenol, toluene, maybe xylene, benzoic acid, and benzaldehyde. So this is actually, the parent is benzaldehyde. So we would say 1, 2, 3, 3-methyl benzaldehyde. Other than that curveball, you should be able to follow the rules for up here, just figuring out what is your longest chain and then put the groups in front of it. So you should be able to do that for these. Go ahead and pause it, give these a try, and then we'll check our answers. Okay, so for the second one, I get the ketone is part of this cyclohexanone, and we have a phenyl group off of carbon 2, so 2-phenyl cyclohexanone. The third one is a 4-chain with an alkene in there, so you could say it's 3-butene-2-one, or you can call it 3-ene-2-one. And there's no E or Z to worry about because of the 2 hydrogens here, so there's no cis or trans. And last example, the longest chain is 5 carbons. We have a phenyl group off of 4 and a chloro group off of carbon 2. So this one is called 2-chloro because C comes before P. 2-chloro, 4-phenyl pentanal. All right. And then let's go ahead and try drawing these guys out. Go ahead and give that a shot as well. Okay, so for the first one, 2,2-dibromopentanal, pretty straightforward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oftentimes, I actually prefer to have the H drawn in. Just, I think it looks nice, but you don't have to draw it in there. But the 2 bromos in the second position, great. For part B, 5-methyl cyclopent-2-ene-one. So I'm just going to start with what I know, cyclopentanone, and I know there's a double bond on carbon 2. So I just start off drawing a cyclopentene with a carbonyl as carbon 1. So carbon 2 would be the double bond, and then carbon 5 would be the methyl group. So you just go all the way around the ring. Can't seem to draw 2 here. There's 2. Okay, carbon 2, 3, 4, 5. So this would have to be carbon 5. And for part C, a little bit more complex, we have a complex chain right here. So I'm just going to start with the cyclohexanone part because that's pretty simple. Here's cyclohexanone right here. And then this tells me at carbon 2 of cyclohexanone, I have this group on the inside, cyclohex-2-ene-yl. So a cyclohexene ring, and at carbon 2 is a double bond. So I would like to perhaps move this pi bond. Okay, this will be carbon 1 right here, so I need to have the double bond over here, carbon 2. All right, because this 2 is referring internally to the cyclohexene group, where the 1 is the branching point, so 1, 2, so of that ring. And then this 2 on the outside is referring to the cyclohexanone, this ring. Here's carbon 2 of the outside part of this name. Okay, and this parentheses is extra. It's a typo. All right, try some more practice on that on your own, and then let's move on to the next part.